Thanks for taking a couple of minutes to watch the video, and also for completing the survey and helping the Miniature Aircraft Association Board of Directors put together a long-range facility development plan which reflects the needs and the wants of all the members. We greatly appreciate the response we got on the first survey, and we learned an awful lot from it. We're now ready to refine those results as we go forward with the second survey. So the purpose of this survey is twofold. The first is a continuation of the process which we initiated last summer as we began to develop a long-range facility development plan that'll guide what happens and what is developed at Higgins Field into the future. The second purpose of this survey comes with the announcement that we have received an anonymous donation of $3,000, which has been earmarked for a second runway, provided that it's in place by July. So for that reason, we've removed the items from the survey which had to do with the runway, because we've already resolved they're going to be done. You may wonder how we think we can put a runway in for only $3,000. And the $3,000 will only get the runway in place. It will not get everything else done. But it's a start. We've already arranged to get road graders and earth moving equipment. The donation will be sufficient to purchase some material to cover the runway, which will not be asphalt, but a synthetic which is being widely used in fields around the country and should last for around 10 years. We've also taken the charging area for electrics off the survey because we've nearly completed that project, and once the weather warms, it'll be installed to the west side of the doghouse. For the remainder of the video, I will try to explain the 4 different runway layouts that are being considered as briefly as possible. There's more information on the website, and please feel free to contact any of us for anything you don't understand. But it's important that we get feedback from all of the membership so that we represent the needs and wants of the entire club. You're probably aware that the AMA has guidelines as far as where the pits have to be in relationship to the runway and where spectator areas are, and that's all fairly well prescribed. You may or may not also be aware that they have prescriptions as far as how much space you need to allow for safe flying. In this example here, the little black runway has a large flying area and then an overfly area, which is the largest box. When we take the AMA's guidelines and superimpose them over our own field, you can see a light green line on the outside which represents a safety area, a blue line which represents the flight box, and then the black runway in the middle, with the bright green box representing irrigated areas around the field. So here we've taken a U.S. Geologic Survey map, overlaid that with a satellite photo, and then overlaid that with the AMA guidelines for our runway and a representative runway. The thin green line to the outside represents the outer limits of a safety zone. The blue line represents the flight box, and then the runways are black again. The yellow hatched area represents the areas of concern in the safety zone, and the red hatched areas are areas of greater concern within the flight box. The red hatched area to the upper left shows an area where the 2 flight boxes are intersecting, and the red hatched area to the bottom right shows where the flight box is over the river. This was the first runway layout we looked at. We call this option 1. The idea behind it was we wanted to be able to enable afternoon flight so the pilots are facing to the north and east. We also wanted to enable the pilots to be able to take off into the wind if it's coming from a crosswind, in this case the west. And while that looks like it worked fairly well, it does have a couple of side effects. One is there's a large area which is hashed in red where the 2 airspaces are shared, which could lead to the potential of mid-airs, and the other is that there's a large area in that flight box which you can see is over the river. This is option number 2. And what we've done here is to put the runway on a true east-west axis because the comment was made that the prevailing winds are from the west. Now, as you can see, this adds a considerable amount of shared airspace conflict, which would limit the amount that the 2 runways could be used simultaneously. And it also has an awful lot of flight over the river in the flying box. So this is option number 3. We just said that the prevailing winds are from the west, and that's true, but the strongest winds come from the south. This runway is set on a north-south axis to address this, and it also minimizes the amount of shared airspace conflict, and it doesn't have an awful lot of space over the river. While that's pretty good, we actually thought we could do a little better with option number 4. So this brings us to option number 4. And what's been done here is to take that north-south runway and just tip it a little bit. Effectively what that does is it reduces the amount of the primary flight box, which is over the river, and it also reduces the amount of shared airspace. Well, that concludes explaining how these are laid out and a real quick justification for the different layouts. There are proponents for each, but the important thing to the board is that we get input from everybody and find out what the group thinks as a whole. Now, looking at these on a video can kind of explain what's going on, but if you really want to analyze them, you'll probably want to go to the website and look at the graphics much enlarged. And you can do that by checking the links that were sent to you in the email that came with the invitation to the survey. Thank you for your time, and hope that we have a great runway out there within the next few months.